Hey guys, and welcome to another video from D1 DLC. Today we get a very special early look at the Technomancer. So if you're interested in seeing what this game has to offer and my thoughts on it, please watch on. The Technomancer is a science fiction themed action RPG developed by Spiders and takes place on the red planet Mars. The game centers around a young rookie Technomancer, Zachariah, and is set some 200 years after the colonization of Mars, which has now fallen into decay and civil war between powerful corporations, mutants, and mobsters all vying for control. So let's start out with what exactly a Technomancer is. Basically, they are mage warriors with innate abilities that allow them to call forth powerful electrical currents, which are enhanced and focused with cybernetic implants and used in combat. A somewhat secretive society, the Technomancers hold a closely guarded secret as to their existence and how Technomancers came into being, and perhaps even more about the human colonization on Mars and its downfall. These mysteries slowly start to unravel themselves as you continue along the storyline.
An outsider who managed to work his way into the ranks of the elite Technomancers. A marvelous story, especially given their secrecy.
But before we go too much further, let's take a look at what this game actually has to offer. As in any good RPG, main questlines and side quests are the foundation of longevity and enjoyability within the game, at least they are for me. Now, the Technomancer has no shortage of side quests and branching main questlines. The problem is, the main story seems to rely on some deeper understanding of experience within the world. I'm not sure what I'm missing here, but almost right from the start it seems as though there are relationships that have been cultivated over many years and now coming to a head.
To defend and protect our secret, even with the sacrifice of your life, if need be.
I swear.
Then welcome, my brother.
But since you aren't given the chance to get to know anyone, or have any idea what their backstory is, you are left with characters that are extremely shallow and more than a little arbitrary. Not to mention slightly laughable when clearly the conversations were intended to have some sort of meaningful impact.
I'm leaving for the front, as is expected.
I wish you could stay longer.
Wish that I could as well, if not only to appease my concern for you. But their will moves more than my desire. So they separate us, as they always have, to keep us divided, and I fear to further isolate you. Stay wary.
The most frustrating part about this is that the main storyline suffers for it. With characters you don't really care about, the story loses interest quickly and decisions come across as relatively meaningless. With the exception of one or two characters that delivered some much needed, if only minor, comic relief, I never got the feeling of any actual emotional ties or meaningful conversations.
Did you just call my baby pretty neat? That's it? Pretty neat?
I didn't mean... It's swell. Real swell.
Holy shit. I think you guys plucked this fucker from the farm before he was ripe.
It also has to be said that a number of the side quests deteriorate into frustrating fetch quests a lot of the time. However, there are still some gems mixed in that are worth the time to investigate.
Did you hear that, Lieutenant? We gotta get over there. I can't leave these people without an escort, soldier. They're vulnerable to attack. Go on, report back when you can. Stay hidden. I'll deal with the assassins.
But moving right along, let's check out some of the gameplay the Technomancer has to offer us. With 3 main classes to choose from and a separate Technomancer class as well, just about every style of combat can be catered for. The first class we'll take a look at is the Warrior. Equipped with a staff, the Warrior's attacks deal high damage and focus on large area attacks. With wide sweeping blows and maneuvers, the staff is at its best when being bogged down with loads of enemies swarming around you. The second class is the Rogue class, and without doubt my personal favourite. With a focus on speed, agility and swift critical strikes with a small blade, your focus on timing is essential but delivers devastating results to enemies, in particular in conjunction with a sidearm that damages and staggers incoming enemies. The Rogue class also lends itself well to stealth takedowns and knockouts. The third class is the Defender class, which is equipped with a mace and shield. The ability to block incoming attacks and counter with brutal blunt force is extremely handy. The trade-off for this though is a significant reduction in speed and agility, making your use of the shield in both defense and offense every bit as important. On top of this, the overarching Technomancer abilities feed into each of the three classes by adding significant boosts with electrified weapons, shockwave shields, and powerful magical attacks in their own right. The really great addition to these somewhat standard classes though is the ability to swap between classes on the fly at any stage during the game, even in live combat. The inventory allows for specific weapons and equipment to be allocated to each class, enabling you to make the most of everything at your disposal in any given situation. Now this isn't to say that you're forced into using all three classes. Personally, I play almost exclusively as Rogue, and once you have honed your skills in a class, they can all keep pace with enemies thrown your way if played to their advantages. Now another excellent feature of the Technomancer is companions. Throughout most of your adventures you'll be able to team up with up to 2 companions, each with their own specialties, weapons and skills. You can swap out companions as you come across them, so if you prefer wading into the fray with a ranged shooter over a shield and club wielding tank, no problems. You get complete control over each companion's equipped weapons and gear and can tailor them to support your playstyle. Even during combat you have the option to issue commands to your companions to fight as they see fit, take defensive measures, or all out attack. A very nice option to have. As you go along, pay attention to your companion's dialogue as well. Often they'll give you hints depending on the quest and even converse with you, which adds a nice layer of immersion. Now let's take a look at the skills, talents and attributes available in the game. There are 4 skill trees to work your way through, each lending themselves specifically to each of the 3 classes and of course the Technomancer abilities as well. Each class has a hierarchical tree for you to work your way through up to 18 passive complementary skills, with each level gained in the game affording you a point to invest in the class of your choice. In addition to skills, there are 6 talent lines for you to invest in. These include stealth, lockpicks, exploration, crafting, science, and charisma. Now there are tons of locked loot crates, locked doors, and conversations where coercion can play a pivotal role, so my suggestion is to look at investing into lockpicks and charisma as early on in the game as possible. You also have attributes which provide boosts to strength, increasing damage dealt and decreasing damage taken, agility, which increases critical hit chance, power, which increases Technomancer damage and energy regeneration, and constitution, which increases health, carrying capacity, and resistance to staggering effects from enemies. So let's just take a moment now to look at the environment and graphics in the game, because let's be honest, it really is a point that can make or break a game. And in the case of the Technomancer, it certainly doesn't break it, but on the other hand it doesn't do it any favours either. The environment is reasonably attractive, although it comes across as dark and drab with some neon signs to break up the gloom, which does keep in sync with the storyline and setting, however it does leave me a little bit underwhelmed. With the full day-night cycle apparently built in, I struggle to see the difference between either. Another factor that I think negatively impacts the environment is the limited amount of NPCs populating the world. Given the appearance of a somewhat out-to-lunch field, there are hardly any people going about their business, other than a handful of vendors and some ruffians. Particle and lighting effects in particular around electrified weapons look excellent, and almost give you a Star Wars The Force Unleashed feeling, which is definitely not a bad thing. Now let's talk a little bit about the character models in the game, and specifically the facial features which are on display in almost all of the dialogue sequences. They're, for want of a better word, disturbing. With no perceptible change in emotion, the characters' facial models betray some of the voice acting's intent and come across as bland and even strange. The vocal animations also make me think of a badly dubbed Asian movie most of the time. It also has to be said that the music in the game does not always keep tempo with the on-screen actions, with occasional up-tempo fight music lingering long after combat has ceased, or what seems to be something that is completely from left field and doesn't seem to match the tone and feel of the game at all. I'm looking at you, menu music. One other thing I feel needs specific attention in this game is the map. Now the mini-map itself on the HUD is fine, but the main map looks tacky and doesn't have some of the important features, such as being able to pin points of interest manually, or remove items of interest that get in the way. It also has to be said here that the level designs often have winding delving avenues, which create multi-leveled areas, which is great, but attempting to pick your way through the level using the map should have a Steam achievement all of its own. And I'm not even going to mention the map overlay. Seriously, are we still doing this? Why? Now with all that said, the combat mechanics are fantastic in the Technomancer. This is one area I feel they've absolutely nailed. Stringing hits, deflections, shots, dodges and Technomancer abilities together in one fluid fight, whilst incorporating hot swapping of different character classes is nothing short of genius. Almost to the point where all I want to do is pick fights with anything that moves, because realistically, it's the best part of the game. There are also some epic looking bosses that you'll come up against that require you to use just about everything at your disposal, and will definitely take you a little bit of time and research to identify the lumbering beast's attack patterns and critical hit points. Now lastly, I just wanted to mention the inventory and crafting system. Whilst your inventory is clearly siloed into categories that makes item management relatively painless, it's the upgrade and dismantling system that ultimately leads to some frustration. Not being able to flag items for sale or dismantling and bulk sell or destroy should be a standard in all games. Manually having to roll through tabs of gear is mind-numbingly annoying. It also needs to be said that when upgrading gear and weapons you need to drill all the way down to the item's sockets until you can determine what upgrade options you have, and more frustratingly if you have the required materials. Okay, so for everyone that's made it this far in the video, let's wrap things up. So the Technomancer is a third-person action RPG that absolutely nails intense, skill-based combat with impressive skill trees, talents and buffs that constantly allow you to hone different fighting techniques and weaponry. Its downfall is the lack of engaging characters and storylines. Inadequate character depth and subpar voice acting definitely lets the game down in what looks to be a deep and rich world with a storyline I absolutely want to get to know, but fails in getting me invested enough to continue to play through the game. And the final verdict is a 6 out of 10 for the Technomancer. And once again, thanks for watching guys. If you liked what you saw, please hit that like and subscribe button. Let us know what you'd like to see coming up. Tell us in the comments, we'd love to hear from you, and I hope to see you on the next episode from D1 DLC.